Hello and welcome to Working Together, Vice President of Standards and Education Chair. My name is Brittany Henderson. I'm the Regional Director of Chapters for Region 6, and my co-presenter today is Katie Meehan, Assistant to the Director of Standards. The purpose of this webinar today is to provide clarity regarding the Education Chair's responsibilities in regards to the senior agreement and to provide some additional instruction on when it is appropriate to refer a senior member to standards for failing to meet the terms of the senior agreement. So you'll see in today's agenda, we're going to look a little bit about look at the senior agreement document, talk about the tracking of the terms of the senior agreement, and then Katie's going to go ahead and talk about the referral to the Standards Committee, the process of revoking the senior agreement, and review a common scenario with a common solution. And if you have questions after viewing this webinar, the last slide will provide you with our contact information so that you can reach out to us and get additional clarity or support. So hopefully by now you've had a chance to review your Education Chair resources on the Kappa Kappa Gamma website. They include the chapter preview for the senior orientation, the senior agreement, the senior survey, the senior programming planning form, as well as an entire webinar devoted to the implementation of the senior programming. So hopefully you have a pretty good grasp on the process for creating the senior agreement. So as the Education Chair, once you've determined the requirements of the senior agreement with input from the senior class and the results of that senior survey, the agreement would then be voted on by the chapter. That vote is important because it makes sure that the chapter's needs are balanced with the lesson senior requirements. Once those senior agreements have all been agreed upon by the chapter, the seniors will be asked to sign the senior agreements. Those signed senior agreements are then kept on file with the Standards Committee. And then if for some reason a senior member is called into standards for violating the terms of the senior agreement, that senior agreement could be pulled out and reviewed during the conference, just as you would use the membership commitment statement to remind women of the commitment they've made to Kappa. So in terms of tracking the terms of the agreement, the Education Chair should coordinate with the recording secretary to track and verify the senior class members' attendance according to the terms of the senior agreement. This does not mean that the recording secretary has to be at every single event, but it does mean that the recording secretary and the Education Chair should be making sure that someone is able to keep track of attendance, that gets delegated out, and that they're able to report back to the recording secretary and the Education Chair on who was in attendance at the senior events. If at that point the Education Chair finds a member has broken her senior agreement by failing to attend the event, or if the Education Chair is having difficulty getting a member to sign her senior agreement, then the Education Chair would notify the Standards Committee liaison that's been appointed to her. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass the virtual mic over to Katie, who's going to talk more about the referral to standards.
Thanks, Brittany. So like Brittany mentioned, there is a liaison position within the Standards Committee to the Education Chairman, and these liaison positions should be determined already. If they haven't yet, just go ahead and work out with your committee who will be assigned to each officer position. So when the liaison to the Education Chairman is notified that there's an issue with a member or a group of members and their senior agreements, she will make the rest of the Standards Committee aware of those referrals, and they will be discussed during the new business portion of your meeting. The Standards Committee will then make the decision to schedule a conference with any members regarding broken agreements, and they will allow during the conference to have them explain the situation to the member, as well as allow the member the chance to explain her side of the story. With the member out of the room, the Standards Committee will then make a decision as to the next steps, the next course of action, if they're going to applying a probation or probation. If probation is deemed appropriate, the Standards Committee should utilize the suggested guidelines for specific situations document for terms ideas, and specifically look at the attendance idea, since it is an attendance referral. That is why these seniors are coming to your committee. If the situation is severe, the Director of Standards can be consulted for potential loss of membership. However, if your committee is talking about potentially requesting a resignation, you really do need to speak with the Director of Standards prior to mentioning this as an option to the member, just so that you can make sure all of your ducks are in a row and that you have permission before taking the next steps. Revoking the senior agreement. The senior agreement is a privilege for a reduced attendance policy for our seniors. We understand that they have a crazy year. A lot of them are getting ready to try and find jobs, or they're looking at grad school, so we've given this an option for them. It's not a right, and they're not guaranteed to have it. So as a standards committee, you can temporarily or permanently revoke the senior agreement for a member based on the situation. If you're just going to rescind it for the length of the probation, it would just mean that the member would be held to the full attendance requirements of the general membership of your chapter for the length of the time that the probation is for, either 2 to 10 weeks. If your committee deems so, they can revoke the agreement entirely. Maybe if the member's a repeat offender with attendance, specifically with the senior agreement, that might be, and they're not understanding that it's just that they have to agree to that, then you can decide to just take it away, and for the remainder of the year, they have to abide by the full attendance policy of the chapter. So next we do have a scenario, and this is one that myself and Jenna have seen a lot in the standards minutes. And Kelly Kappa's agreement is to attend 2 chapter meetings per month. Kelly missed 3 of the 4 meetings during October because she had study groups during the time of chapter. And Kelly feels like her absences should be excused since they were academically related. One thing that a lot of our seniors don't fully grasp is they're so ingrained with the excused or unexcused absences that they feel like that still applies to the senior agreement, and it actually doesn't. So as a standards committee, you should keep that in mind. Their agreement is that they have to attend certain events. And especially with chapter, they have the flexibility to pick the chapters that they attend if they don't have to attend all of them every month. So they do need to try and work at that into their schedule and be mindful of the fact that in Kelly's situation, her agreement is to attend 2 a month, so she needs to make sure that her schedule allows her to attend 2 per month and rearrange her study groups to be a time other than something that would conflict with chapter. So we want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this webinar. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Brittany at her email address that's on screen, or you can reach me at the Assistant to the Director of Standards email account. You can also ask any questions to your PDC. They're great resources to go to as well. So thanks, everyone, and have a good night.